Welcome, everybody. We're just getting folks in the door. Happy Valentine's Day. Uh, I'm excited to turn on my camera to show you my Valentine's Day fit, but you'll have to wait just a minute or two more. While we wait, go ahead and drop your name and where you're tuning in from in the chat. And maybe if you want to also add what your favorite Valentine's Day treat is. That would be a fun get to know you. There was a big Makeover Monday with all 50 states and our candy preferences this week. That was an interesting one to explore those visits. So what's your favorite Valentine's Day treat and where are you coming from? Welcome, folks who are coming in. It's great to have you here. Happy Valentine's Day. I'm now showing you my Valentine's fit. I've got my light pink striped shirt, my maroon sweater on today to celebrate the holiday. Some great treats coming in of the chat. If you didn't hear me earlier, I asked if everybody could just chime in on the chat where you're tuning in from and what your favorite Valentine's Day treat is. I'm seeing some great ones. I have to particularly agree with peanut butter M&Ms, which are also a favorite candy of mine. If somebody got me a big bag of pink and white and red peanut butter M&Ms today, I would probably just marry them on the spot. So it's great to have you all here. Thanks for taking the time out of your schedule to come to the accessibility tug. It's been a while since we had one of these. And I've really got to thank our speaker today, Scott, for reaching out to me and specifically saying, hey, I'm a person with disabilities that uses Tableau, and I would love to talk to the accessibility Tableau user group. So thank you to Scott for kind of getting this kicked off for this week. I also just want to say hello to anybody who has been struggling this last month. I know that this is a tough time for a lot of us who are involved in the work of ensuring people have equal access to digital platforms or work platforms or things like that. So if that's you, hello to you. Again, thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for the time that you're taking. I know we also have a lot of government workers who come to this user group. So thank you for what you've been doing for the last month. Really, it's seen and appreciated. You all are an incredibly important part of our country with the work that you do. So thank you again for taking the time to be here today. We have a great tug lined up. We have Scott Eaton, who's going to be here with us today. We also have a recurring guest, Blake Burgess, from the Salesforce accessibility team, that's going to be talking about some of the updates in 25.1. This is our agenda for the day. We may go a full hour, we may not, but we'll see how long it turns out to be. It'll kind of be around, how many questions we have for Scott. Blake, just as a reminder, I am Colin. I am one of the founders and the current leader of the Accessibility Tableau user group. I am a senior consultant with the Information Lab US, based in New York City. The Information Lab is a global data visualization consultancy partnered with Tableau for a long, long time now. So I'm happy to be here with you all today. If you're ever interested in consulting services around accessibility, please feel free to drop me a line. I'm also currently recruiting other leads for this group. I'm not going anywhere, but I'm currently the only lead for the accessibility tug. And tugs are better led when they're led together. So if you're interested in helping lead this tug, you can reach out to me. My email will be on the screen later on in the slide deck, but I'll just put it in the chat here as well. So if helping set the course of this tug is interesting to you, please let me know. All right, so to jump right into things, we're going to be talking with Scott Eaton today, who is a data visualization manager at JPMorgan Chase. He is a tug ambassador for the Career Pathways tug, or Career Pathmakers tug, as well as the Columbus tug. And I think you're also a tug, the tug ambassador. So you've got a lot of tug things. This is a familiar space to you, Scott. And like I mentioned earlier, you reached out to me actually to have this conversation based on your own visual impairment. So Scott is visually impaired Tableau user, and we're going to talk to him today about how he uses Tableau and what sort of accessibility technology he sees being important in the future. So at this point, I am going to shut down my share screen, and I think we'll just have a conversation without that between Scott and I. Let's see. I'm going to stop that share screen right here. Okay, cool. Scott, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
All right. So to kick us off, Scott, I gave a little bit of an introduction, but I'm interested more about what your current role is at Chase and how it intersects with Tableau.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to start with that here. Kind of provide a little background because that will kind of educate where I'm wanting to go. So I've been at Chase just over 11 years now. I've been on 6 different teams in Chase. They really promote internal mobility and learning different areas of the bank. I've been in the data visualization field itself for almost 20 years. I started back in 2006. My degree is in computer information systems. So mainly what I did in school was just a lot of learning of coding to do web application development, things like that. Did that for the first year that I was out of school. And then my boss at the time, because at the time I was working at the OSU Wexner Medical Center at that time. And my boss at the time said, hey, there's these things called dashboards that our executives are starting to get into and want to do. Do you want to take a stab at it? And me kind of still having that learning mindset, being fresh out of school, I figured, okay, I'll give it a shot. If I'm not good at it or need to have a little more time with it, I can at least put it on my resume as a skill that I can develop later. So started working on it. The tool at that time that we were using was Oracle's tool, Oracle Business Intelligence Enterprise Edition. Learned that on my own with no formal training, just by playing around in the tool in about a day's time. Really liked it, started doing dashboard builds. And at that time, I was strictly a front-end developer. And I found my niche. And as they say, I took the ball and ran with it at that point. And I've been doing it as a career ever since. And kind of how my career path has gone is I started first as a front-end developer, then expanded my knowledge to where I learned a lot about data engineering and data warehousing, to where I could either do it myself or I could educate the people who were doing it, so that way I could make sure things were built properly to put a dashboard on top of. And for the majority of my career, that's where I've been at, is really in the weeds doing dashboard design and development. Here over the last probably year or so, I've switched in my career. I am managing now. I was a first-time manager a couple years ago, natural progression of the mentoring that I was doing. And I do want to get to a point in Chase where I'm at the executive director. One of my mentors and also colleagues here at Chase is Will Perkins. Everybody, I hope, is familiar with Will's name. He's an executive director in the area he's at, and that's what I'm aspiring to get to right now. And in order to do that, yeah, I've got the skill set I've honed over the years from being really in the weeds and doing design and development. But now I've kind of switched that to where I'm focusing more on using my skills to do strategy around things. Because my current role is data visualization manager. I manage the US-based reporting and automation team for card data and analytics in Chase. So I'm responsible for, right now, we've got a dashboard uplift project going on. Our environment is 60 plus dashboards with over 900 users that use those dashboards. So trying to get something in place, getting a strategy in place to work on uplifting that environment. I'm also responsible for a whole area of reporting to where I need to evaluate it. It's very manual, Excel based, so do some stuff around that. And all that involves strategy. And take my Tableau skill set and saying, hey, can this current version, is there a visual component that can be put into Tableau? If it can, then putting some estimation, time estimates around it, milestoning, things like that. And if not, then okay, what other tools can we use? So I'm starting to expand my knowledge a little bit to be what I think the colloquial term is, a solution architect.
Nice. Yeah, it sounds like a great progression, right? I can see why you're part of the Career Pathmakers, Tug. You've got the path set out, right, for yourself, as well as helping direct others on it. So I'm curious. You told me you were visually impaired. What does that mean in practice, right? So can you talk to me a little bit about how you navigate your day-to-day tasks, and specifically how that impacts your use of Tableau?
Okay. Yep. I have a condition called optic nerve hypoplasia, which means my optic nerves are short, and I've had this condition since birth. So this is what I've known all my life. And the signals don't get to my brain properly. So a lot of what I have is a lot of nearsighted vision. I've been able to navigate it pretty well over the course of my life. I went through in high school, I took mobility training so I could learn to go through spot landmarks, things like that, to kind of get my bearings in situations, since I'm not able to read like street signs and things from far away. So went through a lot of that. Would go through and when I had a hard time reading things, I would ask for help, for people to kind of help read stuff for me that was too small for me to see. I've had an assortment of like magnifiers that I use over the course of my career that I've been able to get help from the state with, like state funding and things like that. And this is one thing I think is cool, and it's expanded with this, but most people would think of a visually impaired person, them not being able to drive. I drive. Um, there's a state of Ohio has what's called a bioptic program, to where you go through this program, you use a special set of glasses to drive with, but you have to go through, learn how to use them. You go through a low vision check for your eye test that you need to take every time you need to renew your license or get your license. And then I started out with restrictions on my license to where it was daytime only. I would only drive during the day. And then eventually I have an unrestricted license now to where I can drive during the day and the night. But that being said, I didn't get my license till I was 21.
Yeah.
Just because of everything I had going on at the time. So been able to do that, but really from a personal standpoint, it's not really affected my life very much, because I've been able to find things that been able to supplement me along. So having people who are able to help me read stuff. When it comes to entertainment, I'm an avid gamer. For most people, a large screen TV is a luxury. For me, it's a necessity. I have here in my room here, I have a 75-inch TV that is key for me to be able to sit a decent distance away from the TV in order to watch it. And things like that. So I've been able to adapt as I've gone through my personal life and my career. As far as the professional setting, there's really only two things I've needed in my career as it relates to my vision. One is a large screen monitor. And I've had around 30-inch monitors my entire career to use. And I use screen magnification software. I use software called Zoom Text, if people are familiar with that. I don't need the speech recognition piece, because even though I'm a visually impaired person, if it weren't for the fact of the condition I have, I think I'm on the very low end. I'm considered legally blind. My vision is 2100 or 2150 in both eyes. And really, to just combat that, all I've ever needed is just magnification software. And it really helped me along the way, as far as designing dashboards and things like that. And where it intersects in the Tableau space with what I do in Tableau is, I don't think a lot of people, I may be hypersensitive to paying attention to detail when I do my dashboard design and developments. So, and because I have the magnification software on my screen, I can really zoom in and see stuff with a lot more detail. So if I'm looking at a distance and something maybe looks off or not aligned properly, I can really zoom in and say, is it truly misaligned?
Yeah. And I'm sure you've got like that pixel perfect.
Yes. Yeah.
Approach.
So seeing things like that, I'm very sensitive to, and this is probably the biggest part of the accessibility piece for me is using a colorblind friendly palette. Because I've seen numerous dashboards over the years to where I've had dashboards that have just by color just given me whiplash when I look at them. Or I've seen dashboards to where I have to go in really close and sometimes I even have to zoom in really close on with my magnification software. If the color hues are so similar, I can't tell them apart.
Interesting.
Or the colors are too light. I got to really zoom in to say, hey, are these different?
Yeah.
Things like that. So
that's you don't have any color blindness yourself. It's just
I've noticed as I've gotten older, I do have a little bit. I have a little bit of, I think, red-green color blindness. To where, like hues of green and red, if they're really close, I have a hard time telling them apart unless I'm like zoom in to check that out. So that's only been like a recent development, probably over the last 5 years or so, but kind of just has developed with age.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, that's not something that I would have thought like overlapped, right? The kind of colorblind palettes as well as like visual impairment in more of like a nearsighted, farsighted way. So that's interesting to know. But like I can totally see why like having distinctive colors makes a difference right? In this case as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Universal design, right? I feel like it always comes back to that.
Yep. It always does. Yes.
Yeah. So you mentioned a tool called Zoom Text that you use.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, like how that works with like the interactivity of a dashboard or things like that. Can you just talk a little bit like how that software tool works and how you use it with Tableau?
There really is not. Up until recently, there really hasn't been any issues with using it with Tableau.
Mm-hmm.
The dash, you can still interact with dashboards the way you're supposed to. Man, like I said, it's just screen magnification, so you're just zooming in and zooming out. It doesn't tie into usage and things like that. So yeah, it mainly helps me see dashboards and things better as I'm going through. So I do a lot of design and development now as I've become more of a Tug ambassador and do a lot more mentoring. I have my mentees and just other people ask, hey, can you give me feedback on the dashboard I created? So it's definitely key for me to kind of provide valid feedback on the dashboards. And sometimes I may go into too much detail just because I've got that extra bit of magnification that I can see. I've tried to learn to dial that piece back a little bit because
You get
I've learned
overwhelmed
that
newbies pretty easily that way.
yeah, I've learned over the course of my career that some things are just subjective and based on preferences. So I try to dial back those things as far as like color choices and stuff like that. But yeah, there's really no impact. I've run into a recent situation. It seems to have resolved itself with using Tableau in a virtual environment to where Tableau would be a little wonky and would freeze up and things. But other than that, I think from just how Tableau interacts with this particular screen magnification software, there's really no issues with it.
Cool. And when you're using the tool and you're like zooming into a dashboard, like how much of the dashboard are you looking at a time? Are you looking at like a quarter of it or more, less?
Yeah, I have my settings set to look at a quarter of the screen.
Okay.
But because I've been using this tool I've been using this as long as I've been in the workforce. I've been using it almost 20 years. I've gotten very good at, okay, here's what I look at, navigating around, only seeing the part of the screen I'm looking on, and getting familiar enough with the dashboards to where, okay, even though I'm not seeing that part of the dashboard on the screen, I know immediately how to navigate to it,
Right.
to it and so on, just because I know the ins and outs of Zoom text itself. And I have settings set up in there to increase like clarity, make sure it's highlighting my cursor certain ways and things like that. So, but yeah, circle back around to your question. Yeah, it only highlights like a quarter of my screen at the time, but I've gotten very good at being able to navigate around with it. Now, other people who are not familiar with it, who see my enlarged screen and see me moving around, some of them get a case of virtual vertigo, I guess. Because of how quickly I can move around, and I've heard quite a few comments from people that they're just amazed at just how only seeing that small portion of a screen, how I can just navigate around and still be able to do the things I need to do.
Yeah. Honestly, it reminds me a little bit of like a screen reader where if
Yes.
you're someone who's not familiar with using it and you hear it for the first time, you do get almost like audio vertigo, right? It's like so much information coming to you in a different sensory method than what you're used to. Yeah.
And that is an advantage of this tool too. There is a screen reader component. So if in the future, for whatever reason, my vision does start to, as everybody says, it gets worse with age, that's kind of built into the tool. So I'll be able to have that feature that I can use as well.
Yeah. Cool. I want to invite folks that are here on the call. If you have questions for Scott, there's a Q&A function at the bottom. Feel free to throw questions into the Q&A. I just enabled it, so you should be able to put in questions and I can relay those on. So I I'm always loving like best practices and things like that. Is there any advice or best practices that you'd give to folks who develop dashboards, who want to make sure that their content is accessible to people like you or people with other kinds of visual impairments?
I would say the two biggest things for me are color and alignment.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the things that I'm drawn to. Those are the first things my eyes are drawn to on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure you're definitely using a colorblind friendly palette.
Mm-hmm.
I know Tableau has a palette in there, and I've tried to use that through the course of my career. But again, we know depending on the area you're in, sometimes they have their own branding that you need to do. The area I'm in is no example. We have a JPMC brand color palette that we have to use, which has blue, green, things like that. And I've tried to fight the case around, okay, we don't want to be using like blue, green in the same color palette for people who are blue, green colorblind, but you got to know what battles to fight
Yeah.
as it goes. So I've been very good at knowing what battles to fight and when to kind of back off.
Mm-hmm.
But as much as you can use a colorblind template, definitely use that. Another thing is just making sure things are properly aligned on your dashboards. I've seen quite a few dashboards in my career to where this chart's higher than that chart, or this chart's way over here and that's down there. And it's distracting. And not only from a chart perspective, but even when you have like titles misaligned, labels misaligned, things like that.
Mm.
My eyes are drawn to that, and I know other people, because my eyes are drawn to it. I've also read up on some research and things, and I know like people who don't have visual disabilities, they're drawn to that too, and the
Yeah.
research, the eye movement research shows that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We don't like it when things don't line up.
Yeah. So those are probably the two biggest things, at least for me, that I would say make sure to have in place for somebody who would be visually impaired.
Yeah. There's a question that we have from Veronica that asks if you have any personal preferences on a minimum font size or contrast ratios.
I personally do. For everyone, and I'll go ahead and plug myself here. I'm a huge standards guy. I will be speaking at conference this year on how to establish dashboard standards. And part of what those standards are is, okay, you should be using consistent font types, font sizes, things like that. I would say the best font types to use are the web friendly ones like Arial and Times New Roman. Those, no matter what browser you go into and things like that, they will show up well. Standard font size I like. I normally don't go any lower than 12 point. But again, based on the type of data you're showing. So if you're showing band numbers, things like that, yeah, you're going to want to maybe have that in like the 18 to 21 point range. Titles in like the 16 point range, things like that. So it varies based on how you're wanting to display your data on the page and the metrics that you have. But those are some of the standards things that I try to use. And when I'm creating standards for my area, like I am now, we're incorporating those into there as well.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the 12-point minimum. I know it means bumping up a lot of the like defaults in your workbook, but yeah, I agree on that one for sure. Looking at our other questions, let's see. Do you have any best practices to make dashboards more easily screen reader accessible? I know that that's not something necessarily that you use directly, but with your use of Zoom text, maybe it's something that you come into contact with.
I've read a few things. So I haven't had a experience using screen reader personally, but what I can say is any instances that you can add alt text in for images and things like that, please definitely do that. And if there's instances where you can use like the caption feature for your charts, Definitely do that because screen readers will pick up those captions.
Mm-hmm.
So those are probably the two biggest ones that I know about. I haven't used those, but I do know about them. I do know, I believe, here at Chase, we're we're like 2 versions behind on Tableau, but I believe there's additional accessibility features in Tableau now that will allow you to add alt text to things other than images, things like that. So yeah, anywhere you can add alt text, add it. And anywhere you can put captionings and just having text on a page with instructions, things like that. So things that a screen reader can easily pick up. I would definitely try to put that in there.
Yeah. I know Blake, who's on the call, has given us some demos around alt text at the here in the tug before. Blake, if you want to chime in, what are all the things that we can add alt text to now in a dashboard? I don't know if you can hear me or not. Oh, there
Yeah, I can. Sorry. Yeah, you can add alt text to buttons, images, and visualizations now, as well as tooltips. So on the latest version of the cloud. So there's not a lot left that you can't add alt text to, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let's see. Since you gave that nice chime in, Blake, I'll pick your question next, which is, if you could have any feature to make Tableau more accessible for you, what would it be?
This is a tough one. I don't know. I may have to come back with you on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd have to put some thought into that. Just because I a lot of times I've just been focused on not so much because I've been using the tool for so long. I know how to get to things quickly and accurately. So I really haven't had an issue from an accessibility standpoint of okay, where do I go to do formatting? Where do I go to do this? Because I normally know the 2 or 3 different ways to do it. And if one thing just escapes my mind, boom, it's like in my mind how to do like the alternate way to do it.
I'm curious how much you find yourself using like the keyboard shortcuts when it comes to formatting and things like that, rather than going through like the visual GUI.
And I think that's a good segue in here because I have never used keyboard shortcuts.
Really? Huh.
So I think I can maybe answer the question then. If there was a way where we can easily go in the tool itself, and this may be just a knowledge thing for me to see the keyboard shortcuts, or maybe have it in a menu somewhere, like with the menu options that you're showing in Tableau Desktop, being able to see, okay, save is Control S, formatting a workbook is Control FW, something like that. So something that you can visually see when you're selecting those actions through a menu, that in parentheses you can see, okay, here's the shortcut.
Yeah. All right, write that down, Blake. There definitely is a web page, but it would be nice to have it like within the tool itself.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's see what other questions I have here. Umar has a question about font, but I think we kind of already discussed font. So John asked, if a single chart is larger than a quarter of your screen, does it make your magnification method more difficult?
Not really, because I know how to navigate to kind of see what I want to see. And if it does, I can always lessen it. Normally it's not that much bigger, so I can maybe drop it down a magnification level. Another thing I do sometimes is I can maybe just change my screen resolution as well, because part of the standards document I was talking about earlier is a part of that is, okay, we should be developing to a standard screen resolution for a 27-inch monitor. So part of the checking of that it involves me, okay, if I'm not already on that, I would switch my resolution and then I'll just adjust my magnification on my software accordingly to see that. It's very easy for me if something is just like overtaking the entire space, to where I can just zoom and just move around to where I need to see the certain pieces, or I can just zoom in and zoom out as I need to.
Another kind of like specific question about like, does this work for you or not? Maps, Angie asks, are those any more difficult to navigate in your method?
I wish I could give an answer to that. I can safely say in my entire 20 years, I've never used maps. I've never had a business to
They're not
put.
mapping locations of banks or anything in your
Well,
dashboard?
they may be, but just in the roles I've had in the areas I've been in, I've never had a business case where I've had to create a map for a dashboard.
Got
So I
it.
apologize, I'm not able to answer that, but I have no experience with maps. I know of them. I'm familiar with the basics of how to create them, but I've never actually had a project I've had to actually build one for a dashboard.
Got it. Cool. All right. So I think I'll have maybe one or two more questions from me.
Okay.
Can you share a moment or a project where you felt like your perspective as a visually impaired user was particularly valuable or useful to your business and your organization?
I had this happen probably, I think it was a couple years ago. Here at Chase, we have days where we have for the different BI tools we use, we have like, I don't say it's workshops or seminars, but we have an atrium where in the location I'm at, and the different piece of software areas, they set up tables, and if you want to learn more about the tool, you can come and learn more. So, and a lot of the people who run the Tableau piece are my colleagues here at Chase. So I go down there every once in a while just to catch up with them because I don't get to see them too often. And actually, one of she was my mentor early on when I went through the Tableau Academy here at Chase. Heather Goff, she had mentioned to me that somebody had reached out to her about learning more about Tableau and just building dashboards in general, and she had actually pointed them my way. And she had actually told me that because everybody there knows about my visual impairment, that she had told him, yeah, I'm going to send you to Scott. He builds amazing business dashboards despite, and she wasn't meaning this in a bad way, but despite his like visual handicap, he builds very good, functional, appealing business dashboards. And when I heard that, and that came from her own mouth as we were talking, and I was just shocked, and I just stood there in a daze for a second, and I just never expected to hear something like that, and that's something I will never forget, and I will remember for all time.
Yeah, because you felt like it was, not a compliment that you would typically receive, or
no, I guess I really thought about that point. Something like that, I'd never had a compliment like that in this field geared around my disability. So it was unexpected. She is somebody I respected wholeheartedly, being in the field. So for her to say that was a very humbling thing, and was kind of validation that everything I've done up to that point in my career, I've been going down the right path. Because I don't make it a point to call out my disability. And if somebody walking down the street just saw me, they wouldn't know there was anything wrong with me. And that's how I've tried to live my life, and both professionally and personally. But to just kind of get that kind of feedback from somebody that was my mentor and that I respected, really kind of just affected me.
Yeah, totally. Okay. Well, I think that's a great place for us to wrap up, Scott. I do have one fun activity. I was talking to somebody that through one of these other tugs, Tabitha, saying, what are some of the things that Scott likes? Because I always like to do a little lightning round, get to know you. And she said, well, he really likes Star Trek and he really likes Lord of the Rings. So I've got a little bit of a challenge for you.
Okay.
We're gonna do some who would win lightning round. So let me share my screen again. All right. So I'm gonna show you a series of matchups, and what I want you to tell me is who you think would win. and maybe a little bit of your description of why. But remember,
Okay.
it is a lightning round. So are you ready?
Yep. Go ahead.
Okay. So this is Lord of the Rings versus Star Trek. Our first matchup is Gandalf versus Captain Picard.
Gandalf would win just because of the magic aspect. And Gandalf gets very involved, and throughout the Lord of the Rings movies, you see him actually taking part in the battles and things. Captain Picard gives the orders. You don't see him kind of being involved in phaser fights too much. He does have his share, but I think Gandalf, just from an experience perspective, would win.
All right. Gimli versus Lieutenant Worf.
Worf by far. Klingons are the ultimate warriors in any universe.
Wow. Gimli would be upset to hear you say that. But fair enough. Legolas versus Data.
Oh, that is a tough one. Oh man. My gut tells me my gut tells me Data, just from the logical aspect. Yeah, I'm just going to stick it with that. Data, he's got just because he's a computer, he can process things faster, and before he can anticipate everything before you even know what you're doing.
Yep. Okay, Sauron versus Q.
Oh man.
Getting a little bit deeper cut here.
Yes, you are. I would say Q, because Q is a god, Sauron is not.
Nice. Aragorn versus Spock.
Spock, because of the neck pinch.
Vulcan death grip for the win.
Yes.
All right, I think that's my last one. Yeah. So thank you, Scott, for sharing your experience with us on Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, and all things visual impairment related. Really appreciate you reaching out to talk with us.
No problem. Glad to be here, and happy to have shared my experience with everybody. And I'll put my LinkedIn information for everybody, so feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, and we can chat anytime.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks.
All right. So next, we've got a great accessibility update from Blake Burgess, who's the project manager for accessibility and Tableau at Salesforce. And Blake's going to be talking to us about some of the exciting updates in 25.1. So we're going to be talking a little bit about keyboard accessible interactivity, data model accessibility, and then some of the accessibility settings. So Blake, I will hand things over to you.
Well, thank you so much. And thanks everybody for being here, and Scott for sharing your experience. I'm so grateful to have you as part of our community and make that connection. So as Colin mentioned, today we're going to talk about a few changes. I'm excited to demo them. And then if we have enough time, happy to take some questions and maybe talk a little bit about what we're working on for 25.2. It looks like I can't share my screen right now, I think, because there we go. All right, so let's get this set up. So one of the first things that I am excited to share, I am on the settings page, the account settings page of Tableau, and we've now introduced accessibility settings. And the first accessibility setting that we've added to Tableau is the ability to customize whether non-critical alerts auto disappears. So if you're at all familiar with Tableau, you're probably aware that unless it's a critical alert or something that requires a direct interaction, all alerts, or toasts as they're sometimes called, auto disappear for everyone after 5 seconds. And I don't know about you, but my brain does not always take in things in 5 seconds. So the goal of this is really to start to allow viewers and everyone across the product, but particularly viewers, to decide how they want to interact with the experience. So it's very simple to get here. I am on Tableau. I'm going to click on my little circle that shows my menu, and then click on account settings. This is all for cloud and server. Once I go to account settings, I'm going to click on the settings tab, and I'm scrolling up to the top, but normally I am going to start here at the account section and just scroll down. And right between now, notifications and preferences is the accessibility section. And our first setting we put here is the alerts. So it gives a description of what we mean when we talk about alerts, because that term is just so heavily loaded now. We have a checkbox that lets you decide whether you want to automatically dismiss them or not. If you choose to automatically dismiss them, you can manually type in how many seconds you want in order for them to persist. So you can make it 60 seconds, 30 seconds, 12 seconds, whatever makes you happy. And then you hit save changes, and that is now saved for you and will be the configuration for your account. So that's our first item coming out in 25.1 for accessibility. The next one that I'm going to demo is accessibility actions. So I'm going into my accessibility demo screen, and I am on a text table. The Viz doesn't really the contents of the Viz doesn't particularly matter, because these actions are now going to be available to all client-side rendered visualizations on cloud. So whether you are looking at a map, a text table, a line chart, you're now going to be able to take actions as part of your navigation. So I'm sharing my screen, I'm in the address bar, and I'm just going to hit tab and go through, both the Chrome of the browser as well as the Chrome of Tableau. I'm in the toolbar, and now I'm moving into the visualization. The focus indicator is around the entire Viz. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and now the focus indicator is on the marks. Our goal is to continue to make this simple to do. So hitting enter again automatically puts me on the top left mark here in this text table and pulls open the tooltip. If I hit enter again, I'm now inside the tooltip, and I can just continue hitting enter and select in order to get to these actions. So the tooltip has expanded, and you'll notice that there are actions that include keep only, exclude, and changing the order of the way the information is displayed. Just using the simple arrow keys, I am able to go back and forth without any issues across the buttons therein. If I hit enter or space, it's going to go ahead and change that. My Viz has re-rendered. I have been put back onto this same mark that I started with, which is the top left mark. You'll notice the tooltip is open. It is expanded and has the information, and this would be announced by my screen reader if it were open. So this is exciting, because now not only can everyone see and understand data, but now they can interact with data. So again, this is in 25.1 and is on all web rendered Tableau native visualizations. So what that means is if someone were using a Viz extension, that's not going to work quite yet for this. And Viz extensions created by third-party developers don't support this functionality yet. Developers don't have an opportunity currently to create a focus order and create this interactivity yet. So that's the third thing we've done. The second thing we've done, I apologize. The third thing we've done, I'm going to go ahead and hit edit on our visualization and then go to the data source tab. And this is a very simple data source, but I think that's okay. What I'm going to show now is, some people call it the, meatball and noodle or data object model.
I've always been partial to the meatball.
Right. It makes me giggle. It does make me happy to call technical product that. But again, this is now added to the tab order and navigable. So I'm going to be able to just navigate through here. It navigates, if you watch the focus order, it navigates through all of the menus first because that matters. But now the focus order is inside the data element. If I hit tab again, you'll notice I can change the title without a keyboard. And now I'm inside the data object model. And I can go ahead and just hit the arrow keys and it will tell me the relationship. So there's a focus indicator around the starting node and a tooltip opens that says logical table orders. If I hit the right arrow key, we always start from the highest point and work our way down. So this lets me know that there is a connection, and I hit the next right arrow key and it tells me what it is connected with. Now that I'm on logical table people, if I hit down, it just pops me over to returns and lets me know that this is there. If I hit the left arrow key, it lets me know that returns is connected to orders. So now someone is able to explore these connections, interact with them, and hear them announced with assistive technology. Any questions before I talk a little bit about what we're working on right now for 25.2? Actually, I see one from Christy, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll take Christy's first. So Christy asks, is there any plan to allow us to control the color of the focus indicator? So this is something that we have been talking about internally with our development team. I think some of the things that we have talked about, it's not a plan, but some of the ideas we're starting with is particularly for authors, is there an opportunity as they're building a dashboard or a visualization at a worksheet level to control the focus indicator, particularly for screen reader navigation or keyboard only navigation. Another thing that we are exploring just as a product is how do we get to allow more viewers to control their own experience. So rather than having a author say, I'm going to build this visualization in, say, Home Depot orange, and the focus indicator is going to be blue, that might work really well for them, but horrible for my vision. What if I had the ability to say, well, I want it to be in this palette and I want the focus indicator to be this only for me and every time I open the tool? So that's something we're doing a lot of thinking about and exploration and talking to people with disabilities to understand what would that look like and is it something we could support? Colin, it sounded like you might have a question.
Yeah, I was curious about the announcement that comes out when it's on the the connectors between the different logical tables. Mm-hmm. Does it announce anything related to the fields that are being used to link those two tables?
Yes, so it announces basically the joins.
It does. So it'll say, mm-hmm. Great. That's awesome.
And it lets you know, once you get on over here, if there were additional joins possible, you could know that from using the screen reader. So not only is it interactive with the keyboard, but it will announce and let you know whether there are further connections that you could make.
Interesting. And is there a way to move from the logical layer down to the physical layer here?
No, not yet.
Okay.
We're still on the logical layer.
Got it. Well, even the logical layer is great. Great.
Yeah, place. We're excited because I think this is the first time, in many ways, this is the first time we're getting into some of the nitty-gritty aspects of the authoring side and exploring that. And, a data visualization is fantastic, and having an understanding of the underlying data, the inputs, the connections really allows you to understand that robust context. And so, our goal is to consistently expand what everyone is able to do in Tableau to make it accessible. I think the other thing that we're excited about with this is that the team that built this did a really great job of trying to keep it simple and consistent with keyboard navigation. So there's no extra hotkeys, there's no extra special activities. It's really just the arrow keys, enter, and spacebar, just like everything else. And that's something that's really consistent for us, or really important for us, is consistency.
Mhm.
When we look to the future, I think the consistency really could be our theme of the year. Is our goal is to not only have this in Tableau, our core products, but also make sure that we're addressing these needs in our newer products, right? So right now I'm meeting with some of the developers on the Tableau Pulse team to make sure that those visualizations will be navigable in the same way, and the screen reader announcements are the same. And then working with Tableau Next, as I'm sure you all have seen, to make sure that their visualizations and dashboards are also going to pick up the same keystrokes and announcements, so that at the end of the day, as someone using Tableau, you don't have to care about the branding or the name, that it just works, and you don't have to learn it, agnostic of sort of these platform boundaries. And that's, I think, can be really hard generally in any technical environment, to create consistency across products, and then particularly when we're talking about visual products built on very different technical stacks. But that's something that we believe is really important to bring to our customers.
Yeah. Totally.
So just a couple things for 25.2 to tee up. So I'm gonna take us back to our dashboard and just publish this real quick back to our viz, and then to our view of it. So there's a couple exciting things that we are going to be have in 25.2. So one of the things that we're working on is screen reader announcement customization by authors. So on the screen is a map today, and if you were to navigate the map using a screen reader, right now we announce the metadata for the underlying information, which for a map is going to be longitudinal and latitudinal information. I don't know about you, but that is not helpful for me. It doesn't get me there in terms of understanding the data and the information geographically. So one of the things that we are working on currently is the ability for authors to select whether they want to announce the metadata or they want to announce the tooltips. So the reason that this is important is that some of our authors use tooltips well and robustly, and so there's no reason someone using a screen reader shouldn't have equitable access to this. And we know there's some authors that really feel strongly that tooltips aren't beautiful and sleek and all of those things, and so having that metadata to fall back on ensures that there's always something announced. This will be in the accessibility menu on the worksheet level, so controlled add a worksheet. So if you have a dashboard with 5 vises, you could do tooltips for 4 and metadata for 1, and they would all just work the same way that alt text will work. We are also working on picking up some of our, I call them our floating objects, so things that when we make our canvas sandwich and squish it to render a visualization, sometimes ingredients get stuck. And so right now we're exploring how to bring those ingredients into the navigation order and make sure that they're announced appropriately so that everyone can explore all of the goodness inside of a visualization. And then we are also doing some slightly less exciting, but some refactoring of the visualization elements so that every piece, including the corner, should be navigable and announced, so that, by the end of this year, not only will everyone will be able to explore and interact with all visualizations, but almost all parts of a visualization. And then, longer term throughout the year, we're also exploring how to address the drag and drop experience in a really seamless way, so that, my belief is by 26.1, any person, regardless of disability or assistive technology required, should be able to come to Tableau and build a visualization and publish it independently with dignity.
Yeah. And When you talk about that, I think about the dashboarding experience as well, and how even for folks who are mouse users, the dashboard building experience and getting a little thing to be exactly in which container you want it and the placement within a container that you want it can be a tricky experience. Is that something on your roadmap as well?
So we're starting with visualizations first because it's a very knowable problem to solve. When we think about how to make it accessible for people to build dashboards, our number one problem is how to help folks understand the possibilities of placement and alignment. So we don't have a solution for it, but it is something that we are debating and researching and talking about. And I think I share this in every tug, but I really do want to emphasize how much our engineers care about your thoughts and opinions and ideas for this. So I'll share my Salesforce email in the chat. And if you have ideas, you have tools you love, you hate, and reasons why, let me know, because we really do want to be inspired by the people who are doing this work every day.
Your team is fantastic, Blake, and so are you. So thank you again for coming and giving us this update, and thank you for the work that you do to make the product more and more accessible every time we have a new version.
No, thank you all for the time today, and I'm really excited for our next tug in May to hopefully show you some cool new screen reader announcements as well.
Woohoo! All right, I'll take over the screen share for one last time. And it's just my final pitch. So if you are interested in presenting at this Tableau user group, you can find the presenter form by scanning that QR code, or I'll also drop this link in the chat if I can find it. It sort of disappeared on me. There we go. All right, great. And then again, check your email after this. There's the automatic feedback form that comes out. It's always helpful to get you all's thoughts on the tug. And yeah, if you're interested in helping lead the tug, just reach out to me. That's my email address on the screen. I will also drop it in the chat. It's colin.smith@theinformationlab.com. All right. Thank you, everybody, so much for coming, and chat with you next time. Take care.